بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن سهلا إذا شئت آمين. You guys able to hear me okay? Okay, great. So last, was it Friday, we had finished up the slavery discussion and we had started Surah Shams. We only got through about half of it, which was less than what I was hoping to do. But for the review, instead of going over the whole slavery thing again, which we've spent quite a bit of time on, we could just let's just go over the Surah Shams. The slavery thing, we've basically spent like at least like two full classes over like a three-class span. So if you guys still like if you guys want to review that, inshallah, you can just listen to the recordings. As for Surah Shams and other discussions related to it, which I was hoping to bring up here. Inshallah, we could do that now. But before we do that, actually, was some of the questions that you guys had from Friday, which was Thoban, your question about here. Let me pull it up. So I asked my one of my classmates, Milana, he about this question, and I asked him if John was to own a Muslim, for example, Zayd. If John owns Zayd in a non-Muslim land, then Muslims conquer that land. Is Zayd automatically free? And he said yes. In fact, I believe according to Imam Abu Hanifa, even if before conquering, if John were to come to like Darul Islam or like the basically like the Muslim land with his slave Zayd, then automatically Zayd would become free. But if the Muslims were to conquer that land, then bil ittifaq, like basically according to everyone, then Zayd would be free. Okay, so that's that. That was that question. The second question regarding ilham. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Okay, this is Arsalan's question regarding is what is ilham and like what is its nature? What does it have to do with people? Is it something that people can get, or is it specific to prophets and stuff? Okay, so I guess the analogy would be like this. You guys are familiar with the term karamat? Okay, so just like how prophets get mu'jizat and non-prophets like awliya, like pious, saintly people, they get karamat. It would be like prophets get wahi, and then the awliya would get this ilham. Okay, so now I don't know if that causes more questions or if it answers more. But basically, I looked at this up as well as like in a couple of tafsir, like Surah Razi and others. Basically, they just mentioned that it's although everything is like this ayah says, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, that Allah Ta'ala inspires the nafs to do whatever good or bad. That it's obviously everything's under the control of Allah is what I mean. But there's certain things like in the terminology of like the Sufiya where Allah Ta'ala will just inspire a person to do or say certain things that just where they seem like they come out they don't really come from yourself, they it's as he says, it's the angel is actually speaking on the tongue of that person. So for example, let me just give an example to clarify this. Sometimes like I remember a couple of years ago I was speaking to Mufti Sab in his office, and I don't think it was for like a personal issue I was having, or I didn't tell him about a certain issue I was having. But literally everything that he was telling me, the advice that he was giving me was it's like he knew about my issue, and all the advice that he was giving me was just like the ilaj and the cure and the treatment for all these like the spiritual and like or whatever the issue was at that. I don't even remember. I don't remember what it was, but he was basically just saying things that were it's like he knew exactly what I was going through, and the words that he was choosing, the words that he was using, were directly addressed to me, even though he had no knowledge of what I was going through. So these are what we would call. So I asked him. I remember I asked him. I was like, "What he said? Did you find out about such and such thing and stuff?" And then he's like, "Oh no." And then he himself, he actually said this. He said that sometimes I mean, he's saying this out of humility, but of course to me, but he's like sometimes because of the humility of the person that's asking, Allah Taala inspires the person who's being asked to use certain phraseology, to use certain terms, to inspires that the speaker to say certain things that kind of are able to touch the heart of the listener. Sometimes Mufti Saab, I remember just last year he said that sometimes like he would be asked a question, like a really academic question about like atheism or what this objection, that objection, and then he thinks about it. He's like, I, I really I had no idea what answer to come up with, but then I just start speaking, and Allah Taala allows like the truth basically to manifest. on my tongue. And pretty much what happens is that that person who has like this really hardcore like liberal or atheist argument, he ends up being like, okay, that actually makes sense. And even Mufti Saab just like, I don't know where I got that from, but Allah, basically Allah, he's saying that Allah Ta'ala basically inspires him to say certain things, which is very believable considering that. I mean, I'm not specifying which Mufti Saab this is between the two, but I'm sure you guys could guess who I'm talking about. Okay. So any questions regarding Ilham, Arsalan?
No, Asad, that was very
Yeah, so it's just basic, just like obviously because everything's under the control of Allah Ta'ala, and whatever good we do comes from the tawfiq of Allah Ta'ala, and but still like this ilham is something that's kind of just like maybe just like a little notch above that Allah Ta'ala just kind of causes someone to do something that's just not really something that they normally do, say something that they don't know where they got it from. Those are type of like ilhami things. Some I think even in Bayan al-Quran, Mulana Ashraf Ali Tanwi, I haven't read this myself, I was told this, but that sometimes he would be pondering over the tafsir of an ayah for like weeks or months, and then he'd just be like walking back and forth trying to figure it out, figure it out, figure it out, and then something would just hit him, and he's like, I have no idea how I put the two together. So he's like, some of these the tafsirs that he's mentioning in his work, he's like, some of them have to be from Ilham. Okay, that's Ilham. Was there? I don't think there was anything else that was left from like previous questions that we had to go over, so we could just go over through the tarjuma again as a review. Okay, والشمس وضحاها, and okay, Allah Ta'ala takes an oath by the sun and its radiance and its light. We said that الضحى ارتفاع الضوء وكماله. It's the um, when the sun starts rising up and it becomes um, radiant over everything. It's not like just after Fajr time where the sun is just barely gleaming over the horizon. This is when the duha is a time in which the sun has pretty much risen completely and it's at its maximum, or not maximum, but it's the brightness is just overtaking everything. والضحى بالفتح والمد بعد ذلك إلى الزوال. Okay. Anyways, والقمر إذا تلاها, and by the moon, Allah Ta'ala is taking a moon and that which it follows. Okay, so now one discussion that we had was what are all these ha damirs referring to? All these ha pronouns like duhaha, talaha, jallaha. So all these has, the maful bihi pretty much in all these ayat is the word ash-shams. And the moon when it follows the sun. And the moon when it follows it follows the sun. تبعها وفي تبعها لها ثلاثة أقوال. So there's what does it mean for the moon to follow the sun? We said that there's three opinions. One of them is that it يتبعها في كثرة الضوء لأنه أضواء الكواكب بعد الشمس. يعني it's the second best when it comes to um, the brightest constellations for us from our vantage point. That obviously the sun is much more brighter than the moon, so the moon comes in second place. والآخر يتبعها في طلوعه, that the sun, of course, if you look at it from the perspective of daytime comes first, then the moon will follow it thereafter. And الثالث أن تبعه لها أخذه من نورها, that the um, moon is taking from the light of the sun. So, Bad, you mind if I just mute you real quick?
I'm gonna talk to them. And I was like, no, 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 let me talk to them. I know I let her do it first because I don't know if she wants to be on it for some reason. I don't know why. I'm just like, yeah, I really don't care. But,
Stuck. Oh. Anyways, so we have the third opinion is that the moon follows the how does the moon follow the sun? أخذه من نورها, that the moon actually takes from the light of the sun. So that's another opinion mentioned by our classical mufassirun. وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا, and by the day when it brightens it. So the daytime is the mahal, it's the place in which the sun is able to shine. كشفها وأظهر كشفها وأظهرها. والضمير المفعول للشمس, as we had discussed, that the damir for all these previous couple of ayat of the ha in all these ayat is referring to the ash-shams, and then the fa'il of all the different af'al, like for example duhaha, tala, and jalla. This is the basically the first word in each ayah. So إذا جل النهار الشمس. Okay, anyways. والليل إذا يغشاها أي يغطيها والضمير المفعول للشمس والضمير الفاعل الليل على الأصح. So, and when the night, when it covers the sun, يغشى الليل الشمس. Okay, so يغشى, the fa'il is الليل, and the ha, of course, is the shams again. والسماء وما بناها. So now we have two opinions regarding how do we translate this. And Allah Ta'ala takes an oath by the heavens, by the skies, and وما بناها. So I believe we had originally translated it as um, and Allah Ta'ala takes an oath by the one who has created it. وَمَن بَنَاهَا. So ma bima'na man. As you guys know, man is used for aqil, those people of like intelligible beings, whereas ma is used for non-intelligible beings. So you say like a person, you say ma hada kitab. Okay, when you say, but if you say man hada, then that's referring to an individual, like a person who has intellect. So over here, Allah Taala says wa ma banaha. So then ma bima'na, one of the meanings is that it just basically comes in the meaning of man, and that's referring to Allah Taala. So Allah Taala takes an oath by the skies and the one who fashioned it, created it. Or it could be مصدرية. إنها مصدرية كأنه قال والسماء وبنيانها. That Allah Ta'ala takes an oath by the skies and its amazing creation and its amazing architecture. So this ma man debate is basically for the next three ayahs, for the next two ayahs as well. والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها. So ma could either be ma مصدرية or it could be ma بمعنى من. Okay. والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها, and Allah Ta'ala takes an oath by the earth and the one who has flattened it out. ونفس وما سواها, and by the soul or the conscious, whatever you want to call it, nafs, and the one who has fashioned it. Okay, okay, we can skip that. طحاها بمعنى مدها, the one who like laid it out, flattened it out. ونفس وما سواها. تسوية النفس إكمال عقلها وفهمها. So what does it mean for Allah Ta'ala to do taswiyah, for Allah Ta'ala to fashion the nafs in ayah number 7, ونفس وما سواها, for Allah Ta'ala to do taswiyah of the nafs, that means for it إكمال عقلها وفهمها, that Allah Ta'ala grants that that individual intellect and grants him the ability to discern. Uh, we skip that. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. And Allah Ta'ala inspires it or guides it, or how else can we translate it? أَلْهَمَهَا, and informed it with consciousness of its wickedness and its righteousness. Yani the individual is able to discern that which is أي عرفها طرق الفجور والتقوى. That Allah Ta'ala granted the nafs the ability to understand what are the avenues of good and what are the avenues of bad. وجعل لها قوة يصح معها اكتساب أحد الأمرين. That Allah Ta'ala granted an individual the ability, not only like intellectually, but also the person has the capability of physically performing these actions as well. ويحتمل أن تكون الواو بمعنى أو كقوله إنا هديناه السبيل إما شاكرا وإما كفورا. Okay, so in this verse, Allah Ta'ala in Surah Al-Insan, Allah Ta'ala is saying that we have granted the mankind to a path. He could either be thankful for it or he could be um, not thankful. Okay, so we see how that ties up in this. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Okay, so I think that's where we got to, pretty much. One thing to mention that before we move any further was Salatul Duha, as I'm sure you guys are familiar with. You guys have heard of this Salah? Surat al-Duha, yes, very, very um, rewarding salah. I had found a, I probably should have sent this a little onto the group, but inshallah, I could do it afterwards. That regarding the Salat al-Duha, this, okay, so I mean, just it's just coming up because the word duha is mentioned, so that's why I'm bringing it up over here. But there is some discussion regarding the Salat Duha as well. Um, but let's just go through some of these narrations. So this is on Ask Imam. This is so, and it has quite a few narrations, which I just wanted to share. So he says, Josh Salah is also known as Salat al-Duha in the Arabic language. Salat al-Duha is a sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and as is proven through various authentic narrations. And then he brings quite a few ahadith that show its validity and how many raka'at it should be. But let's just go through some of the fada'il of Salat al-Duha. In the hadith, there are many virtues mentioned for Salat al-Duha. Here under are a few narrations. He says, عن النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أنه قال يصبح على كل سلامة من أحدكم صدقة فكل تسبيحة صدقة وكل تحميدة صدقة وكل تهليلة صدقة وكل تكبيرة صدقة وأمر بالمعروف صدقة ونهي عن المنكر صدقة ويجزئ من ذلك ركعتان يركعهما من الضحى. That in the narration of Sahih Muslim, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam has said that in the morning, sadaqah is due on every joint of the body of every single one of you. Saying Subhanallah is a form of sadaqah. Saying Alhamdulillah is an act of sadaqah. Saying La ilaha illallah is an act of sadaqah. Saying Allahu Akbar is an act of sadaqah. Doing Amr bil Ma'ruf and joining the good is an act of sadaqah. Forbidding evil and Nahi al Munkar is an act of sadaqah. Now that's a lot of things to do. That you have to do a dhikr of Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, and doing Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi al Munkar. Then he says, performing 2 rak'at of Salatul Duha will suffice for all the sadaqah due on every joint of your body. Additionally, there's another narration that says, this is great. من صلى الضحى ركعتين لم يكتب من الغافلين. Okay, whoever prays 2 rakats of Salatul Duha, he will not be written amongst those who are considered ghafilin, those who are considered neglectful, those who are considered people who just they don't choose to focus on the deen. ومن صلى أربعا كتب من العابدين. And the one who prays 4 rakats of Salatul Duha, he will be counted from those who are, I don't know why he skipped it, but righteous servants of Allah Ta'ala. ومن صلى ستا كفي ذلك اليوم. And whoever performs 6 rakats of Salatul Duha will be sufficed by Allah the remainder of the day. ومن صلى ثمانيا كتبه الله من القانتين. And whoever performs 8 rakat, Allah Ta'ala will write him amongst um, the qanitin, the obedient. ومن صلى ثنتي عشرة بنى الله له بيتا في الجنة. Whoever prays 12 rakats of Salat al-Duha, Allah Ta'ala will build a house for that individual in Jannah. وما من يوم وليلة إلا لله من يمن به على عباده وصدقة. And every day and night, Allah Ta'ala bestows His servants with a favor. And no favor exceeds Allah's dhikr, being given to the ability to remember Allah Ta'ala in excellence. وما من الله على أحد من عباده أفضل من أن يلهمه ذكره. Oh, look, ilham again coming up here, interestingly. That and there's no better gift that Allah Ta'ala can give anyone except that He grants him tawfiq, really. That Allah Ta'ala grants that individual the ability to make a dhikr, to spend time in worshipping Allah Ta'ala. Anything else? So as you said, okay, let me just a few more like fiqh details, I guess, maybe. At the outset, the minimum number of raka'at for Salatul Duha is 2, as appears in a narration of Abu Hurairah, as comes in Sahih Bukhari. And the maximum number of raka'at for Salatul Duha is 12, as Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Man salla duha thintay asharata rak'atan bana Allahu lahu qasran min dhahabin fil jannah." That whoever prays 12 rak'ats of Salatul Duha, Allah Ta'ala will build him a palace of gold in Jannah. Now, when is Salatul Duha? So this is where the um, a discussion kind of starts. Is Salatul Duha the same as Salatul Ishraq? So from what it seems like, I was reading, what was I reading? Arkan al-Islam by Lucknowi, I believe. Oh, I deleted the picture. No way. Um, okay, I took a screenshot of it. I don't know why I deleted it. But basically, it says that it seems like, according to like the fuqaha and the muhaddithun, it seems like they're they're most likely the same salah, salatul ishraq, salatul duha. But some muhaddithun, I believe he mentioned, as well as many of the sufiya, basically say that it's two different salahs. That salatul ishraq, as you guys know, it's like where you just stay in the masjid after fajr salah. We do this a lot during i'tikaf, where you just stay in your place, you do dhikr, and then as soon as the sun is rising up and it's risen completely, and the makruh time of praying is over, that's when you can pray Salatul Ishraq. And then the Salatul Duha is basically going to be after like a quarter of the day passes by. So usually like, or maybe around like 9, 10 o'clock. So that's the two, the difference between Salatul Ishraq and Salatul Duha. And then he gives another narration as to why it seems like there are two different salahs. Mm, anything else? No, that seems about it. Okay, so that's Salatul Duha. So one important thing to remember is that we're not just learning to learn, but of course we want to make sure that we make amal on whatever we can, even if it's just once. Okay, that's one very important thing. So a lot of like for example, in our Dora year, we go through thousands and thousands of narrations, right? So what's the point of doing all those narrations? They're not going to do amal on like basically anything. So what where a lot of the mashayikh mention, our teachers also mention this is that if you hear a narration, and of, even though you might not be able to practice on it every day, who like praying 12 rakats at like 9, 10 o'clock every might be difficult for us, especially if we have classes and stuff like that or work. But if we could try just for one day, maybe on like the weekend, just let's just we could all inshallah make niyyah to pray Salat al-Duha at least just once in our life. And inshallah this will count us from amongst those people who have prayed Salat al-Duha. How many people go and never pray any nafil salah during their daytime, There'll be most people. So inshallah, just by praying it once, we could be part of a very select group of people who Allah Ta'ala grants us the tawfiq to act upon these narrations at least once in our lifetime. Inshallah. May Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq. Again, فألهمها فجورها وتقواها. Okay, this is where we're starting from, I believe. قد أفلح من زكاها. Now this is هذا جواب القسم عند الجمهور. So this ayah number 9, is the Jawab al-Qasam according to the majority of the scholars. And like we said, Jawab al-Qasam is the reason oaths are being taken. You don't just take oaths to just take oaths, right? You take oaths to emphasize a certain point. So why were all these oaths taken of Washamsi wa Duhaha all the way until basically ayah number 9, was it? 8? It was basically is to emphasize this point of قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. That Allah Ta'ala took an oath on all these different celestial bodies and all this different, on the sun and the moon and the night and the day and all these different things, to emphasize the point that that the person who has purified himself is the one who is successful, and the one who has debased himself, وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, the one who has debased himself with kufr and ma'asi, that person is the one who has truly lost. Okay? Now, وقال الزمخشري الجواب محذوف. Okay, so now one way to tell what the جواب القسم is that there will be a lam in the beginning of the جواب القسم basically starts off with a lam. So for example, we have done quite a few qasams in جواب القسم. Just give me a second. Let me just want to find you guys an example to read off. إذا السماء إذا الشمس كورت إذا النجوم كذبت الجبال سيرت إذا العشر. Oh no. Okay, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Basically, one of the ways to tell what the Jawab al Qasam is that there will be a lam following all the Qasams. And you can tell that, hey, this is the Jawab al Qasam. Over here, we see that there is no lam. So the scholars mentioned that the tulul kalam is the badal of that lam. So the fact that all these oaths were taken back to back to back to back, and then there was just so many of them, and then Allah Taala just says this without an oath. It's very obvious that this is going to be the jawab al qasam. Okay. فاعل وفاعل بزكاها ضمير يعود على من والمعنى قد أفلح من زكى نفسه أي طهرها من الذنوب والعيوب. Okay, so the one who, this ayah number 9 is saying that the one who purifies himself, and yeah, he purifies himself from sins and from any deficiencies, that is the person who's going to be successful. وقد خاب من دساها أي حقرها بالكفر والمعاصي. The one who debases himself with kufr and sins, that's the person that's going to be unsuccessful. وقد خاب من دساها. وأصله دسس. So this is a important locally point that the word dassaha was originally dassasaha, but he says that bima'na akhfa. So dassa means to for something to be hidden, for something to فكأنه أخفى نفسه لما حقرها وأبدل من السين الآخرة حرف علة كقولهم قصيت أظفاري وأصله قصصت. So this the second scene from دسسها basically it became a حرف علة, as I'm sure you guys are familiar with that term from sarf, which is basically that it became a alif. In this case, of course, it became an alif, which is taking the place of the of the other scene. So it just makes it easier to say. وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها. So now كذبت ثمود بطغواها, that is ayah number 11. Allah Ta'ala says that know that the people of Thamud belied the revealed truth of old because of their transgression. Okay, because of their transgression. So regarding this ba, هو مصدر بمعنى طغيان. So طغواها بمعنى طغيان. Okay, we're familiar with this word of transgression and just crossing the boundaries. Um, والباء الخافضة قوله So this ba could be al-khafida or it could be sababiyya. So ba sababiyya. Let's just go with sababiyya for sake of ease. That it is due to their transgression that this بسبب طغيانها. Okay, due to their transgression. That's what the ba that's the meaning that the ba gives. قال ابن عباس معناه كذبت ثمود بعذابها ويؤيد قوله فأما ثمود فأهلكوا بالطاغية. And Ibn Abbas says that this Tughyan is referring to their punishment. And he quotes the ayah of فَأَمَّا ثَمُودُ فَأُهْلِكُوا بِالطَّاغِيَةِ of in Surah Al-Haqqa, that the Thamud, it was destroyed due to their الطاغية. Yeah. كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها. Are you guys familiar with the incident of Salih alayhi salam and Thamud and stuff? We can go through that a little bit quickly too if you'd like. Inshallah. So the story of Prophet Salih alayhi salam and his people of Thamud. And I mean, might as well before we go into the rest of the ayah. Okay, so Prophet Salih was a descendant of Nuh alayhi salam, and he was sent by Allah Ta'ala to the nation of Thamud who lived in Al-Hijr, located in Arabia. So the nation over 3 generations had matured and became very powerful, wealthy, and influential. And the Quran mentions how the society grew very proud of their accomplishments and began building huge castles, palaces, and other structures as status symbols of their power. And this is mentioned all throughout the Quran. And they were given a chance by Allah Ta'ala to turn back to Him, especially knowing that what had happened to the people of Ad for their disobedience. So now Thamud was basically Ad 2.0. Okay, and they knew what happened to their forefathers, so then they had an extra reason to not belie the prophets, to not go against their prophets, to make sure that they honored them, respected them, accepted them. But as we know, they did not. So the Quran mentions the warning of the Prophet Hud, who was sent to the original Ad. Well, he says, "Will you not fear Allah Taala?" So they denied these warnings as obsession with the materialism took over. This is actually a major theme of why exactly is the story of Salih alayhi salam and his people of Thamud brought over here, and it carries on into the next surah that inshallah we'll be able to touch on later today. So they turned away from the path of truth, and the poor began worshipping the rich who proclaimed themselves as God. Now, Prophet Salih alayhi salam, he was a very high-standing man in terms of between the amongst the people of Thamud, and he had built a reputation of respect, and he was very wealthy himself. The people of Thamud actually held him in such a high regard that they were like, this young man is going to be our future leader. He's going to be the one who is going to be our mayor or governor, whatever you want to call it. And what ended up happening was that it was during this period that Allah Ta'ala granted Salih alayhi salam prophethood. And he admonished his people. He says, Ya qawmi a'budullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayru. That, oh my people, worship Allah Ta'ala. You have no deity other than Him. He has produced you from the earth and settled you in it. So ask forgiveness of Him and then repent to Him. Indeed, my Lord is near and responsive. So Salih alayhi salam, he continued to urge the people to obey him and fear Allah Ta'ala. But what happened? They would respond by saying that you were a man of promise before this, that you used to be someone that we used to look up to, like we said, like I just said, like we wanted to make you our leader. Why are you forbidding us from worshiping what our forefathers worshipped? And indeed we are in disquieting doubt about that which you invite us. وفي شك منه مريب. Is that the ayah? I'm reading the English, so I'm not exactly sure which ayah is being referred to here. However, few among the poor walked and entered the fold of Islam, while the majority rebuked Salih alayhi salam. Some called him a lunatic, while others called him possessed. Um, as the days passed, the people of Thamud they feared that Salih alayhi salam's followers would increase. So, in an attempt to put him off and to to throw him off the path, discourage him and all that, they asked him to perform a miracle to prove that he was indeed the messenger of Allah Ta'ala. And they intended to make this miracle impossible to be brought up. So the main leaders of the Thamud sat down and they confronted Salih alayhi salam and they pointed to a particularly enormous rock and demanded Salih to bring out from it a she camel that was extremely tall, very woolly, and 10 months pregnant. They further stipulated that it should produce milk for the entire town. So Salih alayhi salam, out of his desperation to bring the people back to Allah, the path of Iman, he asked Allah Ta'ala to grant him what his people were asking for. And then there came the day where Salih alayhi salam, he gathered his people to witness the coming of the miracle, and Allah Ta'ala, he made the rock split and the she camel was there in the middle. And according to all the specifications and the details that his people had demanded from him. So it was a clear evidence that this was, in fact, the sidqu nubuwatihi, that this was a proof of his prophethood, and it was a clear evidence in their midst that a number of people declared their faith. However, the vast majority remained untouched and pursued their disbelief, stating that it was nothing but pure magic. So, okay, almost done. So the she camel was indeed a living miracle that every passing day people converted to Islam, and the disbelievers could not bear this. So eventually, their hatred for Salih alayhi salam was diverted to the she camel, and Salih alayhi salam feared that the disbelievers would conspire against the she camel and he warned them that, "O my people, the she camel of Allah Taala is a sign for you. Leave her to feed on Allah Taala's earth and touch her not with evil, or else a torment will seize you." So the Thamud initially allowed the she camel to graze on their land and drink freely from the common well, but this was short-lived. It wasn't long before the Thamud became disgruntled. The believers found their faith increasing, while the disbelievers' hatred intensified to a degree where they began plotting to kill the she camel. So, with the support of all the disbelievers in town, 9 men set out, aiming to kill the she camel. They watched her closely as she approached to drink from the well. One of the men shot her in the leg, thereby hindering her escape. And this is what we'll see, the wording comes up in the ayat that were in Surat al-Shams. The others immediately sprang forward and put a sword through her body, killing her. So the people, they saw this as a clear victory and they cheered loudly for the men. And they went on to slaughter the she camel and ate her meat. When Salih alayhi salam heard of this, he hurried to warn the people, but it was too late. People mocked him, saying that, "O Salih, bring us what you promised. You said that if we mess with this camel, the adab is going to come. Bring it on." Okay, that's their attitude. He said, "Enjoy yourselves in your homes for 3 days. That is a promise that will not be denied." ذلك وعد غير مردود. This is Surah Hud, right? Yeah, Surah number 11. Yeah. So the disbelievers, even though he said the adhab's coming, you got 3 days, the disbelievers, they taunted Salih alayhi salam and they asked him to hasten it even more. The Prophet Salih, he said, "O my people, why are you impatient of evil instead of good? Why do you not seek forgiveness of Allah Ta'ala that you may receive mercy?" The people paid no heed, they were only infuriated and began plotting to kill Salih alayhi salam. The 9 men gathered together and they wanted to kill him. Meanwhile, Allah Ta'ala had a plan for the people of Samud, and they planned and we planned while they perceived not. So he instructed Salih alayhi salam to gather his followers and to leave town. The people were only too happy to get rid of him. They were unperturbed by Salih alayhi salam's warning. The Thamud, they possessed excellent craftsmanship that they had carved their houses out of the dense rock in the mountains. And I believe we had gone over this earlier in Surah Al-Fajr. Allah Ta'ala says, what's the ayah? وَثَمُودَ الَّذِينَ جَابُوا الصَّخْرَ بِالْوَادِ, that they're able to completely split these large boulders when they were living in their towns, which were in the valleys. They were able to carve their houses out of dense rock of the mountains, so this made them feel very secure, and they thought that their fortresses would protect them from any natural disaster. So 3 days after his warning, the thunderbolts filled the air, followed by severe earthquakes which destroyed the entire tribe and its homeland. The land was violently shaking, destroying all the living creatures on it. There was one terrific cry which had hardly ended when the disbelievers of Salih's people were struck dead, one and all, at the same time. So this is known as the As-Sayha, right? That was Thamudu bis-Sayha, that they had this, the Sayha was their punishment. That's which, like, basically made them go extinct. And the Sayha was a very, very large and terrifying cry and a very, very loud sound. So neither their strong buildings nor their rock homes could protect them. Okay, yeah, we can stop. That's that. So that's the story of Salih alayhi salam with a lot more detail than what's going to be mentioned here. Allah Ta'ala says, إِذٍ بَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا. Yeah, انبعث means خرج إلى عقر الناقة بسرعة ونشاط. That this person was إذن بعث أشقاها, when the ashqa amongst the people, when the worst of the worst amongst the people, he set out to kill the camel. إذن بعث أشقاها. انبعث basically he set out, and the set out of course referring to the killing of the camel. And his name as comes in the books of tafsir is mentioned as where'd it go? قدار بن سالف. قدار بن سالف. قاف دال ألف را. قدار bin Salif. Sin Alif Lam Fa. Salif. Qudar bin Salif. That's the name of this Ashqaha, of this individual, this leader of that group of people who wanted to kill the she camel as well as kill the Prophet Salih. Alayhi salatu wassalam. So, إذن بعث أشقاها واسمه قدار بن سالف. Okay, it was right there. هو الذي عقر الناقة. So this is the individual who had did the aqar of the naqa. إذن بعث أشقاها. So aqar is, this is a word that's used a lot in this context. Aqar means to hamstring. Okay, it means basically it means to like cut the tendons and the joints by the knees or by the ankles, so that although the leg is intact, it just the animal doesn't have the ability to move anymore. So that's what would commonly happen during like if you're in a battle with a soldier that's on a horse, they would in order to immobilize the soldier, would the first thing to do is you want to be able to take out the horse. So you're not going to just like chop the entire horse's head off or something. You just take out its tendons and its like the hamstrings and the tendons at the knees and the ankles. Then what happens is that the horse, although it's like required very little effort, then the horse is pretty much it can't move anymore. So that's what they did to this naqa, and then they ended up, of course, killing it. ويحتمل أن يكون أشقاها واقعا على جماعة لأن أفعل التي للتفضيل إذا لفت يستوي فيه الواحد والجماعة. أشقاها could also be referring to the entire group of individuals who set out to perform this heinous act. والأول أظهر وأشهر, most likely is the relied upon opinion is that, or the famous opinion is that it's referring to this Qudar bin Salif. إذن بعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله يعني صالحا عليه السلام ناقة الله وسقياها. ناقة الله it's منسوب بفعل مضمر تقديره احفظوا ناقة الله. So why is it ناقة الله? Why is it mansub? Is because there's a hidden fi'l here. There's a hidden fi'l. What's that hidden fi'l? احفظوا ناقة الله. Make sure to keep that naqa, this she camel, safe. Make sure to not oh, احذروا ناقة الله. Be wary of how you treat this naqa, of how you treat this she camel. Make sure not to harm it. This is a sign from the signs of Allah Ta'ala, which you yourself have asked for. Obviously, if you do anything as you guys are going to do, you do something as stupid as that, then there's going to be consequences. So make sure to ناقة Allah, it's mansub, it's the maf'ul bihi of a hidden fi'l. Okay? وَالسُّقَيَاهَا شُرْبُهَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ. And it's like its place of drinking. The suqya is like it's the common well that it was drinking from. Okay. فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها. So they belied. كذبوه فعقروها. Ayah number 14, correct? No. Okay, anyways, yeah, but they belied him and they hamstrung her. So they belied his prophethood. They didn't believe in his prophethood, and then they فكذبوه فعقروها, and then they committed um this this act of aqr towards the she camel. فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها. Damdama is a very interesting word. It basically means like wave after wave after wave after wave. Damdama, I guess it kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it looks like that too. Like, I remember when I was doing this, I just felt like the word, it reflects the meaning of the word too. Damdama, just wave after wave after wave. I don't know. That's just, I don't know why I see it like that. That the wave after wave, this punishment kept coming, just atbaq and atbaq, that these just levels on levels on levels, it just didn't stop until it completely crushed them. Yani, the end result was that it crushed them. Damdama, it crushed them of their sins. So their Lord crushed them. فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّهُم بِذَنبِهِمْ. Again, this ba is for sababiyya. What's the cause of this damdama happening? بِذَنبِهِمْ. Due to their sins. That's how you translate ba sababiyya. Due to their sins. فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ, Allah Ta'ala, رَبُّهُم, their Lord crushed, brought this crushing punishment upon them, بِذَنبِهِمْ, due to their sins. فَسَوَّاهَا, and he completely leveled them out. Level them, it could literally be a physical description of the punishment, or it could also be referring to how like no one was safe. No man, woman, child, um, they all got completely leveled out. وَلَا يَخَافُ عُقْبَاهَا. This is great. Okay, وَلَا يَخَافُ عُقْبَاهَا. And did I skip anything? Uh, لا يخاف عقباها الضمير الفاعل لله تعالى فلا ولا يخاف الله عقباها, and Allah Ta'ala does not fear whatever revenge they're going to want to take. Okay, there's no fear that Allah Ta'ala has when he punishes certain nations. لا يخاف عقباها, والضمير في عقباها للدمدمة والتسوية وهو الهلاك. And this عقباها أي ولا يخاف الله عقب الدمدمة والتسوية that he did, and this halak and this punishment that he brought upon these people of ثمود. لا يخاف عاقبة إهلاكهم ولا درك عليه في ذلك كما يخاف الملوك من عاقبة أعمالهم وفي ذلك احتقار لهم. This is like a nail in the coffin that Allah Ta'ala, and on top of them, on top of him just basically just wiping them out and completely crushing them and bringing down this ridiculous punishment that he brought down upon them. He's also like poking fun at them too due to their idiocy. That وفي ذلك احتقار لهم, that like you guys can't even do anything about it. ولا يخاف عقباها فلا يخاف عقباها. Believe in a different riwayah. Okay, that's the end of that surah. Now there's one thing that I'll try to my best to explain, and inshallah, hopefully it makes sense. But in the beginning of the surah, I was reading Nazm al-Durar, في تناسب آيات والسور, right? I think I mentioned that on Friday, where he mentioned some like absolutely just mind-boggling, like ridiculous tashbih he brings up between the qasam and the muqsam bi, the muqsam alayh, sorry. That what is taking an oath by by the sun and its light, by the moon and how it follows, by the daytime and how it brightens, and the nighttime and how it covers, and by the heavens and the earth and all this stuff. What does it have to do with the Jawab al Qasam, which, as we said, was قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا? Okay, so now here he has like a long version and a short version. I guess I'll just read the short version, in which he says, قال أهل البصائر, that the people of like basically the Sufis, like like the strong, the Sufiya, they mention that وليس في العالم الآفاق شيء إلا وفي العالم النفساني نظير. They mention that there is nothing in the universe that, where in the universe of the horizons, I guess it's a little the literal translation, where if you look up at the sky, there's nothing in the universe except that there's always a parallel in inside a person's own body, inside their own self, inside their own life. وانشدوا في ذلك دواؤك فيك وما تشعر وداؤك منك وتستنكر وتحسب أنك جزء صغير وفيك انطوى العالم الأكبر. That's just a two-line poem about how he basically is saying that there's a lot of similarities between ourselves in the universe, which is why, or which could possibly be one of the reasons that Allah Ta'ala is taking these oaths on the sun and the moon, the night and the day, and all these sorts of things, and then we can reflect upon how that applies to our own selves. Now, this is what he mentions in about a page. He has like 10 pages before this going into more detail, but this is just the short version, which I guess hopefully I could try to finish before the class time ends. He says, فالسماوات السبع كطباق الرأس التي تتعلق بالقوية المعنوية والحسية كالذكارة والحفاظة والواهمة والمخيلة والمفكرة والحس المشترك وما هو المقاسم البصر في العين. So he says that the strong seven skies, these as a lot as we know, we discussed some descriptives and some sifat of the skies earlier in our reading of the 30th parah, that how Allah Ta'ala describes the skies. The strong seven skies, the parallel to that for in the person's own self is that they're similar to his, he says, head. And then he mentions, yeah, basically he's talking about the brain. He says that the strong seven skies, which are like a fortress and like a barrier, that's what the brain provides. That the brain is that which is able to remember all these sorts of different things. It's able to understand all the different sorts of things. It's able to sift between truth and falsehood and all these sorts of different things. وَنَظِيرُ الشَّمْسِ الروح, and the parallel between Shams is that of the ruh, of the soul, في إشرافه وحسنه, in its nobility and in its goodness. ونظير الليل الطبع فإنما به من نور فإنما هو من الروح كما أن الليل كذلك. Okay, and the parallel of the darkness of the night is like a person's, not the ruh, but like their personality and what they and their like desires and those sorts of things that they want. فإنما به من نور فإنما هو من الروح. Whatever light there may be during the nighttime is due to something else. It's due to the ruh. Just like how any sort of light that may be present at nighttime is because of the moon. But where does the moon get its light from? It gets it from the sun. So that's where he's drawing that parallel over there. كذلك من الروح كما أن الليل كذلك لا يكون نوره إلا من الشمس. Okay, I guess I jumped the gun there. بواسطة إفادتها للقمر المنير لها والكواكب. That the only way that the light is able to the only way that the night is able to provide any sort of light is because of a wasita. It's because of a certain. It's not due to itself. It's because it's like a bridge between which is like we said to the sun. Basically, it's taking its light from somewhere else. So similarly, the only way a person can really truly rectify their own character is due to having rectified their soul. So it's when the soul and the ruh become strong with good a'mal and good akhlaq and remembering Allah Ta'ala, that's when a person is able to manifest that into their a'mal. ونظير النهار, and the parallel between the daytime والنهار إذا جلاها الذي هو النير في أصله ومتكدر كما يخيل له من السحب ونحوه القلب. And he says that the daytime is what? Is the heart. And you know that, or like the sky, or I guess when the daytime in the sky is like the heart. And sometimes what happens, you might have the sun is going to be shining, but sometimes there's going to be the clouds that block out the beauty and the brightness of the sun. What does he mention the clouds are? He mentions ashukuk wal awham al nafsiyah. It's all these doubts that shaitan puts into a person, that he makes his heart to become cloudy, um just like how the sky becomes cloudy and the beauty of the sun, yani the beauty of the ruh, is not able to shine through. So those are the doubts and the evil thoughts that shaitan makes a person think. ونظير القمر في ظلمته بأصله وإنارته بالشمس النفس. And the parallel of the moon, I think we had just mentioned this basically, which is it's all tied together, so you kind of figure it out yourself. That the parallel of the moon, although it is dark in its own nature, but it becomes brightened due to the sun. That's just like the nafs. The nafs itself, it's not the best thing. But how could we make the nafs into, like we said, the nafs al mutma'inna? How could we do that? When it gets the brightness from another, from the wasita of the ruh. So just like how the qamar gets its light from the sun, the nafs could also become enlightened when the ruh is active and then when it's very, very strong. إذا أكسبها القلب المستفيد من الروح النور أنار جميع البدن. When the qalb, when the heart is able to benefit from the positive effects of the light of the soul, that's when the entire body becomes illuminated, he says. وَإِذَا أَظْلَمَتْ أَظْلَمَ كُلُّهُ. And when it becomes darkened, when there's no, when the ruh is not strong and it's not able to, do good deeds, that's when the entire body becomes darkened. والأعضاء الباطنة كالكواكب يقوم بها البدن فينير له الوجود بواسطة الروح والنفس. I don't know what الأعضاء الباطنة are. The, the inner organs, not inner organs, like I think he means in like a Sufi sense, but I'm not exactly sure what exactly that would be. والأمطار كالدمع, and the rain that falls down from the sky, like the tears that flow from a person. والحر كالحزن والبرد كالسرور, and sadness is the heat, happiness is like the cold. والرعد كالنطق, and speech, effective speak and effective speech, sorry, and being able to motivate people through through your words is like lightning. والبرق I'm not sure what that says. The print is kind of bad on this PDF. والرياح كالنفس إلى غير ذلك, and the winds are like each breath. لمن تأمل, and that's pretty much that's short version that he gives, which I just thought was kind of cool. The ending was whatever I get, but I think this the beginning part where he talks about how the ruh is the shams, and how it's through the strengthening of the ruh you're able to affect all these all these different sort of things, just like how when the sun is able to affect the night and the day and the plant life and the water cycle and all these sorts of different things. Just like how, similarly, the ruh, when it becomes stronger, is able to have a positive effect through all these sorts of different things as well. Okay, I guess we could just stop there, unless there are any questions. No? I think there was one more thing I wanted to bring up, but can't remember what that is exactly. Did this last part make sense? This whole analogy thing that he brought up? Yeah? Okay, cool. Okay, and then well, what does this have to do with the surah? قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Anyone who, if you want to make sure you have a successful, if you want to make sure you're from the successful, then you have to be able to purify the ruh. And if you're not going to purify it, then that individual is going to be from وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, the one who has soiled it and made it filthy. That person is going to be unsuccessful, which is referring to, of course, the ruh and that which is connected to it. Okay, so may Allah Ta'ala allow us to purify ourselves. We ask that He grant us a tawfiq to make amal on this, actually, this, whatever has been said, especially this Salat al Duha thing. We should all try, inshallah, to at least pray the Salah once. If we can make it a habit, but just one time, inshallah. And so, inshallah, we can be counted from amongst the group are that acted upon this narration, inshallah. Okay. سبحان الله بحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.